Sweet, awesome. So I couldn't think of a better intro than that one for our last night here. So first off, I just want you guys to give it up for yourselves one time. Make some noise for yourself. Awesome. Sweet. You made it through all 3 nights, or all 4 nights, I'm sorry, of this awesome week. And we've talked about a lot. And just to kind of recap on if you missed a day or something like that, just to kind of recap on what happened and everything. I'm just going to be up here again. So first night, obviously, it was on a relationship, on where our relationship began with God, how and why it began. And then the second night, we talked about Genesis 3 and how the relationship with God was broken in the fall of man and all that good stuff. And then the last night, Kelly did an awesome job explaining the restoration that was promised to us through Jesus, basically a substitute being provided. And tonight we're actually talking about how our relationship, or how our restoration has come, and what happened in history that allows restoration to be a thing for us. So with that, I want to read this passage real quick and talk about it. So just before this passage, Jesus had been, taken captive, taken prisoner. He has been beaten, he's been flogged, he's been spit on, he's been ridiculed by all the Roman guards, and even the people who didn't have anything to do with the Roman guards whatsoever. They were even ridiculing him of what he was convicted of, which was being the king of the Jews. And at this point, he's hanging on the cross, suffering for a few hours, and we pick up the story just before he dies. And in Mark 15, starting in verse 33, it says this: "And when the 6th hour had come, there was a darkness over the whole land, and until the 9th hour. And at the 9th hour, Jesus cried with a loud voice." I'm not going to pronounce that because I will butcher it. But that little phrase right there means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And some of the bystanders hearing it said, "Behold, he is calling Elijah." And someone ran and filled a sponge with sour wine and put it on a reed and gave it to him to drink, saying, "Wait, let us see whether Elijah will come and take him down." And Jesus uttered a loud cry and breathed his last. And the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. And when the centurion who stood facing him saw that in this way he breathed his last, he said, "Truly this man was the Son of God." Now, I'm enamored and I'm fascinated by that last part of the centurion and his reaction to Jesus' death. So, just to give you a little background on this is not his first time. It says that I found out that the centurion's job was actually, one of his main jobs was to kind of facilitate these executions and these crucifixions. It was his job to do that. It's what he did for a living. So naturally, this is not his first rodeo with seeing somebody die. But I'm almost positive, I'm almost led to believe that when he has seen these other people die in these types of ways, he's probably like, well, they definitely deserve it for what they did. And you gotta also think that he's seen a ton of crazies up there saying some probably gnarly things like, I am whatever, you know what I'm saying? This is not his first time hearing somebody make these types of claims, even though Jesus was claiming that he was the Son of God, which he was. But the fact that whatever he did or whatever happened in the centurion's mind or his soul, at that very moment, seeing this man hanging there, suffering and eventually dying in this way, for some reason, this one was different for him, where he agreed with the man dying about his claims. And the craziest part about this, and this is it's believed that that same man, who was the centurion at that time, it's believed that that man was actually martyred as one of Jesus' followers later on down the road. How crazy is that? The fact that moment in history didn't just change didn't just change everything for us, but also changed something for the man that was the reason he's hanging there. That's awesome. And that just tells you the power of God within that sense. I believe that this speaks volumes to you and I in such a huge way. We are no better than the thieves that were hanging right beside Jesus. Let me just go ahead and throw that out there. You and I, we are no better than them. We might not have murdered people or did that or did this or stole a bunch of stuff, but the fact is what we've done in our lives spiritually, man, that's just as bad. But I think it's cool to picture this. Even though we're no better than the people hanging beside them, yet at this historic moment in history, all sin from Adam and Eve to the end of time has been paid for. The transaction has been completed. At this moment in time, when he breathes his last, the transaction was completed. It's finished. Right? And in Mark 15:45-46, it says this, and when he learned from the centurion that he was dead, and this is Joseph, from Joseph's perspective, and when he learned from the centurion that he was dead, he granted the corpse to Joseph, and Joseph went and bought linen shroud, and taking him down, wrapped him in the linen shroud, and laid him in the tomb that had been cut out of the rock, and he rolled a stone against the entrance of the tomb. So he kind of buried Jesus, basically, but put him in the tomb instead. So again, at this point, all sin has been paid, but not all has been restored. That actually comes after in just a little bit. But listen, you see, before Jesus' death, to kind of set up for that, before Jesus' death, people's relationships with God laid on the shoulders of the high priest. Meaning that in order for them to ask for forgiveness for their sins, they had to go through somebody else. There was a divide in the form of a veil. And beyond the veil was the presence of God. If you weren't a high priest or something like that, you couldn't go beyond that veil, or else you would die. That's just how it was. When Jesus took his last breath, don't miss this. When Jesus took his last breath, it didn't just solidify our purchase from sin. It didn't just solidify that. It tore the veil and allowed the presence of God to be available to all. Right? This relationship that we've been talking about, that is the reason that it's there. That is the restoration right there. That is the reason it was all restored, is because the veil was torn and the presence of God went out into the world, and so that we can be, so that it can be available to all of us, so that we can be called his followers, right? And at this moment, that was the moment that God wasn't just a God who enjoys sacrifices burning his name. That was the moment that a father claims that he simply wants us to want him. At that very moment. But I love this, because sometimes we feel like that veil is still there. That there's this huge divide, this wall that is built up in front of us in the presence of God that we can't get to. We feel that way. So I'm guilty of it, because I say that because I know it. I feel that way sometimes myself. But by tearing the veil and allowing his presence to be felt by all, God was saying, wasn't just saying, I want all of you. He was also saying, I want you to have all of me. By tearing that veil. Do you understand that? It wasn't just so that we can give our lives to this God. No, it was so that God can share his life with you. That's the whole point of the crucifixion. He was literally giving his life for us, because we talked about it, the Trinity, Jesus being also God in flesh. So that was his representation of that. But the thing is we still believe, like I said, that there's a veil right there. Like there's a separation between us and God, and that is simply not true. There's nothing separating us there anymore. It's been time, because when the veil was torn, hold on, sorry, got all that. There's still a separation between us and God, and that's simply not true. The only veil that separates us from the love of God is the veil we put up ourselves. That's the only thing that separates us from God, is our own selfishness, our own hurt, our own brokenness, our own hate, our own jealousy. Those are the things that separate us from God. That's our veil. That's the thing we put up. That's not an act of God, because the veil that God tore was torn once and for all. It doesn't have to keep being torn. It was torn for all and for good. So that we can conversate with the Father, and so that we can have that relationship. What solidifies all this and makes all of the Bible complete is the very next chapter. Chapter 16, verses 1 through 7, and it says this: When the Sabbath was past, Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of James, and Salome, I can't say that word, but bought spices so that they might go out and anoint him. And very early on the first day of the week, and the sun had risen, they went to the tomb, and they were saying to one another, "Who will roll away the stone for us from the entrance of the tomb?" Just like women. I was wanting a man to do it. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding, okay? Before y'all say something about that, all right? Actually, let me just say this. It says that Joseph actually did it all himself. So go back and read it. I mean, it's on the... Anyway, I'm just kidding. Way off track. All right, anyway, so verse 4. And looking up, they saw that the stone had already been rolled away, and it was very large. And entering the tomb, they saw a young man sitting on the right side, dressed in a white robe, and they were alarmed. And he said to them, "Do not be alarmed. You seek Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified." The very next part, this is where it all changes. This is the game changer. He has risen. He is not there. See the place where they laid him. But go tell his disciples and Peter that he is going before you to Galilee. There you will see him, just as he told you. We'll read that one more time. There you will see him, just as he told you. Guys, that phrase right there is not only confirming all of what Jesus claimed, but also all of what the people who went before Jesus demonstrated with their lives. Abraham, Hosea, Jonah, and so many more people that you read about in the Bible, they were all living examples of the prophecy of Jesus Christ dying and then raising again for us, so that it can all be completed. And listen, all the prophecies that were spoken have been fulfilled in the death and the resurrection of Jesus. So without that little part in there, it says, "You seek Jesus of Nazareth, who was crucified. He has risen. He is not there. See the place where they laid him." Without that verse right there, claiming that in each of the Gospels, without that verse, the Bible is just a big old storybook. I say that because this is real. Jesus was a man. Historically, he was a man. And you may say, well, how do I know that he rose from the dead? Listen, that's where faith comes in. That's where knowing that, yeah, okay, I don't understand this right now, and I may never understand it, but I know that my God is real. I know that he did this for me. I know that he gave his only son for me. I know that what I read in this Bible is true. Gotta have faith, guys. So what does all this have to do with tonight and even this whole series? What does this whole series have to do with you? God has set up the whole universe for this very moment in time where you are right here, right now, to ask you one simple question. And this is the question I want you to really take away from tonight. You can write this in your notes, you can write it in your phone, whatever. Do you trust me? Everything that happened in time has led up to this question for you tonight. Do you trust me? Look, I've met thousands of students across this nation with so many different reasons of why they can't trust Jesus. I mean, they told me everything. There's some students who told me way too much. They've told me everything, and they said, look, this is why I don't believe in God. This is why 90% of the reason why they can't trust God is because they never trusted him in the first place. I say that without confidence because I've seen it. We've seen it in our own little community here. let me just go with the motions and hopefully everything will work out for the best when I die. Maybe I did enough good. That's not it. You're completely missing the point of the whole entire Bible, is to let you know, hey, you're loved. All he wants from you is your trust and knowing that he knows what's best for you. The Bible tells us that all things are done for our good. Not so that you can be good, but all things, even the bad things, even the hurtful things, even the worst things, they're all done for your good. Knowing that God is above all things, and you can trust him. Listen, 90% of people who said that, their perception of God is based on someone else's. And I'm not sitting here trying to tell you, that's the last thing I want. I don't want you to believe in God because you believe in me. I want you to believe in God because you believe in God. And that's the whole reason I'm here tonight. That's the whole reason we're about to end the way that we're going to end, is because I want you to understand the power of the gospel and who God is. He loves you guys so much. So much. And I really want to take this last few minutes or however long we got. I really want to take it and allow you to connect with God in a way that you've never connected before. Not at a VBS thing, no. This is a chance for you to encounter God in a genuine way. The only thing I ask you, and I know I just said don't base your perception on me, because I still stand behind that, but listen, the only thing that I ask you to do is not just go through the motion of singing a worship song, not just go through the motion of saying a prayer, not just go to the motion of coming up to this altar and then praying and then going back to your seat. Don't just go through the motion, but actually talk with God tonight. Can I challenge you to do that? That's a challenge, a Facebook challenge right there. That's what we should be challenging people to do, right? It's really talk with God about your relationship with him, because listen, this whole week has led up to that very moment. Is, do you trust him in your relationship? We can say it all day long, but do you really trust him? When things are bad, and most importantly, when things are good. I found out, like in my life, when everything's good, when I feel like I'm doing the will of the Father, when I'm doing good things, or when I'm doing good deeds, I find that I talk less with God. You've been saved for countless years, since you could even walk. Because I know we got students in here like that. This is not a challenge that you can just look past. This is a challenge for you to grow closer with God in your relationship with him. So I'm challenging you to do that tonight. If you've been saved since you can walk until now, or you just got saved, whatever the case may be, or you're not. Listen, I understand there's a lot that I don't know about you. There's a lot that goes on in your household that is just not fair, that you can't control, because there's so much hate, there's so much selfishness, or maybe even a fatherless or a motherless home, or neither one of them. I understand that there may be some people in there like that can fit into those categories. So I'm not asking you to just completely just say a few words and then you're good. I challenge you to walk out of this building changed, saved or not. I'm challenging you to completely just lay it at the Father's feet, lay it at this altar, and don't look back. And continue to trudge through the bad and trudge through the good, knowing that God knows what's best for you and that he will direct your path. But it's worth it. It's definitely worth it. 25 years old, and I gave my life to Jesus at age 16. And it wasn't just I said a few words. No, I didn't say the few words. I simply got real with God. Got real with God, and I stopped playing this game that a lot of Christians seem to play. Oh, I got to look a certain way when I go to VBS, or I got to look a certain way when I go to church on Sundays or Wednesdays. It's not a game, guys. I've played that game, and it's not a game. Trust me, I'm not saying this to to scare you into anything. I'm simply saying this to encourage you to get real with him and stop playing the game. It's not about you singing a song. It's not about this. It's not about that. I'm going to challenge you to sing with me because I can't sing. We're about to go in an altar call. But I'm just going to simply play some music, background music. And this altar is going to be wide open. There's going to be people in the back that want to talk with you. There's going to be people, including myself, that want to just talk with you. Not because we got it all together, but because we're going through it with you. So if that's you and you really want to talk with somebody, find one of us. It doesn't matter about time when it comes to that. We're simply just going to obey God. I'm going to obey God. These leaders